One of the biggest culprits for ongoing knee pain, foot pain, back pain, hip pain, even shoulder or neck related pains can be something as simple as the shoes that you wear. Every single client that comes into our doors, we educate them not only on the pain complaint that they have, but we take a much more thorough assessment and look at them completely from head to toe. What I try to use as a metaphor is our body is like a car. The engine of our car is our core. The tires of our car are our shoes. A lot of people's problems start with the fact that their engine of their car doesn't start and they're trying to push the gas pedal or the brake and trying to shift the car into drive in reverse without the thing even being turned on. In reality, though, if the car's engine's actually working, we need to start looking at, are the shoes appropriate? Is the tread appropriate for the environment that we're in? Off the get-go, one thing I like to spend time with clients is helping them understand how feet are supposed to contact the ground, what shoes are people most frequently wearing, and then how do we actually make the right shoe choice based on the lifestyle that we live or the goals that we have. From the beginning, I have two shoes here. As many people know me, I tend to be very much so barefoot during the day. I spend most of my time out of shoes unless I'm working out or doing other intentional based tasks that require a little bit more cushion or support. From the get-go, I'll use the shoe that I wear currently most frequently in the day. And we're going to talk about walking. Let's first talk about walking as a whole. When we walk, the first thing that is supposed to strike the ground is our heel. Many people are aware that we're supposed to heel strike first. However, if we strike dead center in our heel or inner edge in our heel, what happens is our entire foot will collapse. Well, if our foot's collapsing in, we call it pronating, or you see a lot of people complain of flat feet. If the foot's collapsed, what that does is inevitably it rotates your shin bone inwards. What your glutes do is they rotate your femur outwards. A lot of people, because of the way their foot strikes the ground and the stability they have as a whole, can have knee pain. Or if the knee is in a healthy place and we have a lot more high impact, we can load this into the hip joint or become a back pain problem. Right back to the shoe though. When we walk, the first thing that's not supposed to strike is dead center or inner edge, but it's supposed to be back outer corner of the shoe. Once we hit that back outer corner, we're supposed to roll over to the ball of little toe, roll over to ball of big toe, and then push off. Why does that pattern matter? Number one, if you take your shoes off and you look at the tread in your shoes and look at the wear pattern that exists, you can see some pretty cool stories that have been happening. In the shoe, I want to see the wear sitting in the back outer corner of the shoe. It needs to come up the shoe, come across the ball of the foot, get over to the ball of the big toe, and then come up and press off the forefoot off the big toe. What many people find is there's a lot of center wear or a higher wear into the heel or an inner wear. Even though they start to hit there and they collapse out, then the wear comes up the shoe, they get to the ball of the foot, and there's a lot of wear that sits right here. There's nothing that gets over to the big toe, and almost everyone starts to push out towards the outer part of the foot. Why does this matter? Let's talk about the shoe in general based on the way the shoe is built. Shoes as a whole today, whether or not people realize them or not, most shoes that people purchase that are available in a shoe store tend to be aggressive run or walk shoes, especially in more of the athletic style of shoe department. We have running shoe stores here. You have places like Dick's Sporting Goods, but then you can go buy shoes at your Meijer, your Target, your Walmart. Most of the time, those shoes are still fairly aggressive support, like walk run style shoes. Why that matters is if you take your shoe, number one, and you put on your shoe and you're not a runner, but you're primarily purchasing what's out in stores, which is a running style of shoe, that shoe is over rigid for you. It doesn't let you get to a lot of things. There's a purpose for that, okay? But that's why we talk about shoes as a whole. But most people don't realize this is an old ASIC that I had sitting around the house from, goodness, probably 8 to 10 years ago. ASICs, Brooks, Sauconys, Hoka's the big shoe nowadays. You go Nikes, a lot of those shoes are aggressive walk run style shoes. Those shoes, you cannot compress them. If I try to push them together, you are unable to truly get the front of the shoe to compress. Why is that? The shoes are built to be rigid, so that way when you run and walk, the shoe does the work for you. It springs you. On top of that, the shoes that we wear have a heel spring and a toe spring. As you see in this shoe, it's rounded at the toe, it's rounded at the heel. Why is it built to do that? When I strike, it rounds me off the entire time, and I have to do less work. On top of that, on top of the shoe being rigid, most people don't realize the shoe that we all wear are basically mini high heels. They all have a heel elevation. That heel elevation is purposefully built in the run-walk community for higher level distances and impact for efficiency and movement. Most people don't need that for their day-to-day demands. What happens is most people are wearing a shoe that has them heel elevated. Why does this matter? Imagine, for example, you are standing on the balls of your feet. You're doing heel raises. If I'm standing on the balls of my feet, pushing up, I'm doing a heel raise, that naturally tends to push my weight forward, unless I'm holding on to something. But if I'm in free space and I push up, I tend to be pushed forward. In order not to fall over, what do I have to do to make sure I don't fall over? I have to lean into my back and dump weight forward into my knees. A lot of shoes that are over rigid, that are over supportive, and that have a high heel rise to them create a lot of knee and back problems, okay? Then on top of that, most shoes that people purchase have arch supports, right? So if we look at this from the shoe, you'll see I have the top cut out. We'll talk about that in a moment. Most shoes have arch supports. We're told that we have flat feet or that we need arch supports. It's a great marketing tool, and sometimes it might be appropriate, but most people, if you're going to be putting some form of orthotic in your shoe, most people are going to need to be away from that orthotic in a year, but no one talks to you about that. The difference between a failed foot and a weak foot, a flat foot that's flat because the foot doesn't actually engage in the ground, and a flat foot that's failed because the anatomy is not allowing the structure of the foot to perform correctly. Most people don't have a failed foot. Most people are failing in their foot with weakness because of the shoes they wear and the lifestyles that we're living and how we're loading our feet throughout the day-to-day demands. Most shoes are dumped forward, dumped out, okay? Again, dumped forward and dumped out. A lot of people end up sometimes with pain in the very front of their foot, something called a mortise neuroma. That's not uncommon for people to start having that issue. Some of it is the way the shoe dumps you, and the next piece is the width of the shoe, which we'll talk about. If you're always dumped into this front part of your foot, you're essentially always loaded into your calves, which loads your knees, which loads your hips improperly and your back improperly. You never really get to push when you walk. You're constantly pulling, and you end up with things like hip flexor tightness that doesn't seem to let go. Again, there's more beyond that, but if the first thing that hits the ground is your foot inside of a shoe and it doesn't make correct contact, or it can't respond to the ground well or efficiently or even appropriately, our body is built to do one thing, and that means survive. And survival in movement world means don't fall over. My body's going to do whatever it has to make sure I do not fall over and get injured. So next piece is then we talk about the toe box. I am someone that has a wider foot, okay? At the end of the day, I have been told my entire life up to a few years ago when I started doing my own care that I needed a wider shoe. If you have wide feet and you go buy wide shoes, they widen out the heel and they widen out the middle of the foot, but they do not widen out the toe box. Why this matters, male, female, doesn't matter. If the toe box is not wide enough for your foot to be the foot that it's supposed to be, we're never gonna actually be able to interact with the ground. Why the toe box itself matters is if it compresses your foot, it takes you away from your big toe. Your big toe is the most important part of your foot. If you cannot get to your big toe when you are pushing, you cannot get to glute max, which is your powerhouse pusher, big old butt muscle and back. Which is why a very rigid shoe can create a lot of problems, because we don't really get to push. We get to do a lot of pulling. For example, if I look at most feet are supposed to fan out. If you put your foot inside this shoe and my feet can't spread out, here's an analogy. Imagine that you as a child are doing wheelbarrow walks. Either you're the wheelbarrow or you're holding someone's legs and they're doing the walking. What do your hands look like when you are the wheelbarrow? Your hands have to be spread out on the ground. Imagine we put shoes on your hands and you try to wheelbarrow walk. I promise you, if you don't go try it out yourself, I promise you that you're not going to feel very stable. It's what we did to our feet. If I put my foot in this shoe, you will see my entire foot be compressed together. Why that matters is there are unfortunately many people that are under the assumption or have been taught that bunions are a genetic issue. Bunions are not a genetic problem. There are genetics that predispose more laxity in joints, but that doesn't mean that you're doomed to have a bunion if grandma had them, mom had them, great-grandma had them, doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, bunions are coming from the shoes that we are putting on our feet, and we're compressing them and we're not letting our foot interact with the ground, and it's trying its very best to figure out where the heck the ground actually is. Why do women end up with bunions more frequently than men? Look at the aesthetic of the shoe. The shoe is super pointed, super narrow, and then if you have even a more aggressive shoe, a really high heel, all that weight being forced into the front of my foot and I'm trying to survive, then we end up with bunions, and bunions eventually lead to hammer toes. There's so many things that happen to the foot because of the shoe that we are marketed and we are presented with on a shoe store shelf. Don't chase comfort. If I go put my foot in a Hoka, which is a really big shoe right now, and it feels good, but it's over supportive, it's very soft and cushiony, it's really dumping me more and dumping me out, it's though we strapped a bag of marshmallows to your feet and said, go and walk. Might feel soft, but it's not very stable. And if you ever test your balance out in shoes and out of shoes, you'll probably see the difference, okay? So then we look at shoes like I wear, okay? Again, the difference being there's a real toe box. Number one, the shoe's not pointed at the end. There's a real toe box for your foot to be a foot in. It is a zero drop shoe. It lets my foot sit on the ground. There's a tiny toe spring to this. This is actually a cross training shoe. It's not a barefoot shoe. I do wear barefoot style shoes too, which completely pull me flat to the ground. Different purpose for different shoes. Then on top of that, there is no arch support in here. This is my foot with some cushion underneath it with a zero drop and a toe box so it can push and start using the thing that I'm supposed to use all day long when I'm moving, which is my powerhouse glute max. Shoes as a whole can become such a problem for so many ongoing issues that you experience. And then beyond that, things that we'll talk about another time, or if you're looking for further information, the stability that you carry within your feet, within the shoe. The shoe can hide a lot of things, and the cool thing about shoes is they wear on the bottom, and you can take them off to look at them. The cool thing about feet usually is you can't take them off. They callus, and the way you callus is a much longer story than the shoes that you currently wear. The way you callus tells even more about how your foot has been interacting with the ground, not only with the ground itself, but within the shoe. You'll see sometimes the shoe and the foot tell the same story, and sometimes they tell opposite stories. If the foot cannot be a foot and it has to accommodate for a shoe putting it in a bad place versus it gets to actually be a foot, you'll see a difference. Biggest thing that I always want to help people take away right from the get-go is shoes matter. If we are dealing with pain problems and we're looking at your body on a global scale and appreciating that this system really requires the engine of the car to fire first, we need to make sure your engine, your core, works. And we'll talk about what core is further down the road with other educational videos, and you'll be able to reference that as well. Or if you're looking for more information, feel free to reach out. If your engine of your car isn't working and you need new tires for the environments that you're in, the first thing you do is not buy new tires for the car. You need to make sure the car starts. We have to focus on the core itself. Get the engine of the body to fire so that way we can load the tires correctly and make sure the tread and the way they wear is appropriate for the lifestyle that we're trying to live. If you're looking for different styles of shoes, run versus walk versus hike versus daily wear versus cross training versus weightlifting versus powerlifting, there's a different shoe out there for everyone. Unfortunately, most good shoes will be not on a shelf, but have to be found online. You have questions on shoes, feel free to reach out. the shoe you wear is so important. And lastly, I'll leave it with this. It's usually about once a month at least that I usually get a picture from a past client of shoes in a garbage bag or shoes in a garbage bin, or a simple message saying, hey, I can't wear my old shoes anymore because they cause so many problems. The new shoes I'm in feel completely different. And I've noticed my ability to live my life by changing my shoes has dramatically changed. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, we are a resource, Divergent Rehab and Wellness. We are a wonderful community to be able to connect to. We have our private space that you can reach out to and join for both free educational resources as well as content that can become more self-progressive and how to take care of things from a distance from us, but also know you always have access to us. Thank you for watching.